My name is Aurora. Some of you know me as Aurora Aura Echo, others know me as Aurora Motivates. A mental health coach, a motivational speaker, but I wasn't always wearing these titles. They didn't come easy. I wasn't always this person. In fact, there was a time when I thought that I would never become anyone at all. Life has a way of shaping us, and my childhood played a significant role in making me who I am today. My upbringing was very challenging. I grew up in an environment where my mother, struggling with her own issues, often expressed them in ways that deeply affected me. I grew up with an abusive narcissistic mother who subjected me to emotional, psychological, physical, verbal, and financial abuse, as well as gaslighting and manipulation. My father was at least physically present for the first 9 years of my life, but always emotionally distant. He never stood by my side, never shielded me from my mother's actions, and even worse, often turned a blind eye to the damage that she caused. This left me completely at her mercy, especially when it came to control over everything in my life, including my finances. In my case, financial abuse was evident from early childhood. Like most children, my money was always kept by my mom, which seems normal at first glance, because children generally don't yet know how to manage their money, right? Well, you see, the problem arose when I wanted to buy something with my own money. In such cases, my mom used psychological abuse, also known as manipulation, by telling me, "Oh, I take care of you, I pay the bills, I buy you clothes, I buy you food," and so on and so forth. She didn't want to give me my money. Oftentimes she actually even spent it, but unfortunately mostly not on the things that I listed, but on her makeup and her beautician visits. It often happened at the store that I wanted to buy something, with my own money of course, and most of the time the answer was no. But when the answer was yes, it meant that we went normally to the cashier and everything, and then when we got home, I thanked her and asked her why she bought it for me, because it seemed unusual. I was not used to it. She told me that I don't have to thank her because she spent my money on it anyway. Another example of financial abuse that I experienced from my mother was that every time I received some money from my relatives, she stole it all. And I'm not talking about just one or just 2-digit numbers. Sometimes even 3, well, most of the time actually. When she didn't, she always made up some excuse for why she needed that money and insisted until I said yes. The third example of financial abuse happened just before I moved out, when she asked me to take out a loan so that she could pay off her debts continuously. She always said she would pay me back, which I know from experience isn't true, because the same story always repeated itself. That is, her telling me that she takes care of me, cooks for me, buys me clothes, and so on and so forth. But in reality, she bought me second-hand clothes, pre-prepared store-bought food, and food with orange stickers for 25 to 50% discounts on it. And it also had tight expiration dates. I would either have too little food or too much food with extremely tight expiration dates. Plus, we had debt collectors ringing our doorbell every other day from several different companies. My mom always left me home alone on these days and ordered me not to open the door or respond to the doorbell ringing in any way. Sometimes then my father would repay those debts, but the story always repeated itself. The lack of a nurturing mother figure made my great-grandmother's presence all the more crucial and impactful. She was the only relative to show me that she really loves me. It even felt like unconditional love. My great-grandmother always made sure that my emotional needs were met, and she took time to hang out with me. I am who I am today because of her. She taught me how to love, and if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be half a loving person as I am today. Love is one of my highest values. My great-grandmother was my rock and my best friend. Her sudden and tragic suicide when I was only 9 years old turned my world upside down. The emotional turmoil intensified as my parents separated and my younger brother was born. Don't get me wrong, my brother is absolutely great and I love him very much. But my parents never really had much time for me, especially now that my younger brother was born, leaving me feeling even more overlooked and isolated than before. The weight of these experiences pulled me into a very dark place, filled with severe anxiety, especially severe social anxiety, depression, and C-PTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. The pain was so overwhelming that I even contemplated unaliving myself and resorted to SH as a way to cope. My experience with anxiety included living in fear of basically anything. I lived in fear of people, of the future. Social anxiety paralyzed me. Depression numbed me. I felt hopeless, haunted by flashbacks and nightmares. I was overwhelmed either by my own emotions or by emotions of others. I was a chronic people pleaser, had a terrible, nasty habit of nail biting, and terrible exam anxiety, and the need for academic validation, and validation in general. On top of that, I also struggled with a horrible lack of self-confidence, self-esteem, had a negative self-image, and struggled with overwhelming feelings of shame and guilt. And I severely struggled with overthinking, automatic negative thoughts, and racing thoughts. The consequence of anxiety that stuck with me the most and that still sends chills down my spine was back in the day when I was still attending secondary school for cosmetics, attempting to become a beautician. We always worked in pairs in our school salon during our work experience classes. One in the pair was a beautician and the other one was what we called a model or a customer. I absolutely dreaded and couldn't stand the days when I was a beautician and equally loved the days when I could be the customer. My anxiety was so severe that it made my hands shake uncontrollably and I couldn't even think clearly. This was, of course, a recipe for disaster, especially for a beautician, because of the precision and artistry. The fact that anxiety caused my hands to shake uncontrollably affected my ability to be precise and also my grades and the impressions that I made on people. So both my classmates and my teachers. Safe to say, none of them liked me, except for the language teachers. The event that stuck with me the most was when I needed to bring a pair of fake eyelashes to school so I could practice coloring eyelashes properly. My teacher didn't allow me to color my classmates' eyelashes, and rightly so, because it was so dangerous since my hands were so shaky. The highlight of my social anxiety was that I never presented anything without experiencing it until college. In the first 4 years of primary school, my parents and teachers had to agree on me not having presentations in front of the whole classroom, just in front of the teacher. That's how bad it was. My depression mostly included melancholy, feeling numb, insomnia. I could be in bed for 12 hours and barely get any sleep and wake up tired. Then there was also isolation, which to be honest worked out well for me because I could later use it and work on myself and take time for myself. Apart from abuse, depression also resulted from unresolved grief. When it comes to C-PTSD, the most common signs that I had C-PTSD were having flashbacks from abuse throughout the day and C-PTSD nightmares throughout the night. I had terrible difficulty controlling my emotions, feelings of emptiness and hopelessness, and constantly living in a fight or flight mode. However, in the middle of all this darkness, my loving boyfriend and now fiancé, Jaka, became my source of hope. His unwavering support and belief in me showed me that life was worth living. Initially, I lived for him. I couldn't bear the thought of never being able to see him again. Even when we were just friends and when he was my crush, what kept me going was that what if we end up together? What if? That what if kept me alive. I knew somewhere deep inside me that eventually we will end up together, and that inner knowing, that what if, kept me going. I was so curious to know what would happen between us. I knew my story wasn't over yet, and that I would get my happy ever after, both with my mental health and with my now boyfriend. For the first time, someone saw value in me, even when I couldn't see it in myself. I started healing, not just for him, but for me. Gradually, I began to understand my intrinsic value and worth. I learned that life has a purpose beyond my struggles, and I made commitment to myself to heal and grow. I craved getting better. Narcissistic abuse left a deep imprint on my mind, making me feel worthless, isolated, and scared. It really messes with how you see yourself and can make it super tough to trust anyone, especially yourself, especially since you're labeled as insane by the narcissist who abuses you. We survivors, before resolving trauma, can find ourselves trapped in fixed mindset, believing that our damaged self-worth is a permanent flaw. The first step to transitioning to a growth mindset was reading Dr. Carol Dweck's book Mindset, and after that, accepting that healing is a process and that imperfections are a part of the journey. I think it's important to recognize that recovery from emotional trauma is non-linear, and that each step, no matter how small, is progress. It's important to take action and start somewhere. A core principle of growth mindset, which was one of the most important steps on my healing journey, and that still helps me to this day, was seeing challenges as opportunities to grow rather than insurmountable obstacles. I started viewing my journey as a chance to rediscover and rebuild my sense of self-worth and identity, moving away from a need for perfection, and celebrating small wins was also crucial. I now see that the real strength is in facing your past and working to make changes. All this while enjoying the process, rather than focusing solely on the outcomes. A growth mindset helped me reframe anxiety from being a threat to a manageable aspect of my growth journey. Instead of viewing it as a setback, I started viewing it as an opportunity to practice coping skills. Seeing my anxiety and all my other struggles as a separate entity from me was a true game changer. You are not your anxiety. You are not your mental illness. Notice how when you say, "I'm anxious," you sometimes unknowingly and unintentionally identify with anxiety. I'm inviting you to truly transform your life. If anxiety, negative thoughts, and overthinking ruin your everyday, you're not alone. When it comes to depression, a growth mindset encouraged me to view these feelings as signals rather than permanent states. They signal where you need more support, more self-compassion, or perhaps a different approach to healing. I love the fact that I took advantage of the isolation that came with depression and turned it into my advantage by leveraging it to take time for myself and pursue personal growth. My C-PTSD made the world seem like a perpetually dangerous place. With a growth mindset, I began to experiment with small steps out of my comfort zone, gradually reconstructing a safer perception of the world around me. What helped me the most might surprise you: Mindvalley. In December 2022, Mindvalley, a transformative platform, became my lifeline. It became my resource for change and growth. It empowered me to take control of my healing journey and embark on a path of personal growth and spirituality. Mindvalley helped me upgrade my mindset even further. One of the first and most transformative experiences that I had was participating in an exercise where I had to evaluate how I could contribute to the world. I decided to become a Mindvalley certified life coach, specializing in mental health. Both this decision and participating in the exercise were a huge factor in overcoming my mental health struggles, as they gave me purpose and a sense of belonging. Mindvalley helped me become a lifelong learner and a student of life. I absolutely adored all the mindset shifts, habit shifts, and identity shifts that I got to experience. One of my favorite takeaways from Mind Valley was discovering spirituality. I previously knew only the religious part of it. I realized that there is so much more to spirituality than just religion, and that being spiritual isn't necessarily the same as being religious. I was an atheist at the time, so this was very comforting to hear. When I delved deeper into spirituality and eventually even religion, I began to find comfort in knowing that there is a higher power. It gave me a sense of purpose. One of my favorite skills that I developed was sharpening my intuition and especially leveraging it as medical intuition. When it comes to anxiety and other mental health struggles that I experienced, the biggest shift happened when I established a daily habit of meditation and mindfulness. Journaling and EFT tapping helped me express myself better and prevent the overwhelming thoughts from consuming me and taking over my life. What also helped me was getting to know energy medicine, especially chakra healing. Through medical intuition, I managed to identify which chakra was blocked, which lacked energy flow, and why, so I could take necessary intervention. I was aware that my root chakra, that carried the majority of the trauma, was severely clogged and needed immediate intervention. It needed serious cleansing, which is exactly what I did, not once, but multiple times. But the scariest part is that if one chakra is out of sync, it affects all of the other ones too. A wonderful practice, which is a true lifesaver, was also cord cutting, which I discovered later into the journey. A life-changing trick that helped me overcome C-PTSD, apart from forgiveness, was completing a lucid dreaming course on Mind Valley. To be more specific, keeping a dream journal, analyzing my dreams, and deciphering their meaning. At that time, I had C-PTSD nightmares every night, so analyzing them and understanding the message they were trying to convey truly helped me heal. All of a sudden, they stopped and never came back. When it comes to trauma healing in general, what had a huge impact was hypnotherapy. More specifically, hypnotherapy for inner child healing. It helped me reparent myself the right way. Step by step, I rebuilt myself, and I realized something powerful. I am not my social anxiety. I'm not my anxiety. I'm not my depression, and I'm certainly not my trauma. I'm not my past. These experiences don't define me. They've refined me. Through all of this, I've learned that healing begins when we stop seeing ourselves as the victims of our circumstances and start seeing our past as a foundation to build on. And now I use what I've learned to help others navigate their own journeys, because no matter how dark the path may seem, there is always a way forward.